Howdy, all of you delicious people. Today we're doing yet another edition of movies Defy Logic. If anything, it's been a very long time since I've done one of these, and rightfully so, just because I couldn't come up with anything that realistically made something illogical in a film. In this edition, I'm going to go a lot of behind the scenes. As you can see here, a lot of behind the scenes kind of stuff from Lord of the Rings. We have Ian McKellen doing a little typing on his laptop. Of course, here we have cameras in the background of a Harry Potter scene. And of course, we have Indiana Jones and Harrison Ford and his little sidekick doing the little click, of the starter marker for Indy 2. Uh, if anything, I'm going to mention some funny things that ideally have bugged me with films. Some might even be repetitive from a former Defy Logic edition, but a bulk of it will be new. If anything, the first one I am going to give you today is when you have an expensive item that they take too long to explain about how valuable it is in a movie. Of course, it is going to get broken. Ideally, when you take, of course, the Mona Lisa, the most expensive item in the world, of course, Nicolas Cage is going to take it from National Treasure and destroy it. Or no, he took the Declaration of Independence, not the Mona Lisa. What was I thinking? If anything, he did try and see Mona Lisa while he was trying to get the Declaration of Independence, but he destroyed the Declaration of Independence, or the paper. Blech. Anything. Let's. But there's been so many times where somebody has overly explained how valuable something is just for something to come crashing through and completely destroy it. If anything, let's move on. Big movie stars with pointless cameos. If anything, let's bring up a lot of pointless cameos. There was, of course, in the movie The Rundown, Arnold Schwarzenegger was walking through the bar and just says, "Hey, go have some fun," to Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson. That cameo was not at all needed. It didn't really matter if it was just like, well, yeah, but it's kind of like a passing of the torch from one action star to another. Realistically, was Arnold in any part of the story after that? No. Then why was he there? Jason Statham was really, example, Pink Panther. Jason Statham was in the beginning of Pink Panther just to keel over and die. Realistically, these studios much have way just to say that they were in this movie. But I guess just for them to get the push to promote this movie when realistically they are in it for 5 years. Bruce Willis was in one of the Expendable movies for mere minutes. And for every minute that Bruce Willis supposedly said that he was going to be in the film, he wanted $1 million a minute. Sounds ridiculous. That, again, a pointless cameo that you really didn't need at all in this film. But you just had people for mere minutes and had nothing to do with the story other than just, oh, hey, he's there. I'm sure Chuck Norris being in the end of Dodgeball, where he's one of the judges, again, was a pointless cameo. But and I don't know why he was in that role. Just doesn't make sense. But I guess to just be like, hey, go for it, be the guy you need to be, LaFleur, whatever. It was stupid. And let's go on to the one that I mentioned in a little bit of one of my other videos. Yes, it is a Christmas movie. Ideally, there are some movies that will be a lot of times excluded from people saying that it is a Christmas movie. Ghostbusters 2 is probably one of those where it's mostly a supernatural movie. Yeah, but it has Christmas in it, it has New Year's in it. You could say that's a Christmas film. Home Alone, you could say is not a Christmas film, but I think it's a Christmas film. Um, Gremlins 2, Christmas film, even though most people could say it's a horror film or a monster film. Die Hard is a Christmas film, even though people could say it's an action film. Does it span any other holiday besides Christmas? No, then it's a Christmas film. Ideally, for a movie that covers more than two holidays, to me, is not a specific holiday film. And I'm gonna kind of bash two and one together. If there is a holiday, if there is more than two holidays put into one film, then it is not a specific holiday film. Especially speaking of Harry Potter here. Harry Potter, some people could say it's like, well, Harry Potter's a Christmas movie because there is one movie where Christmas is in Harry Potter. Well, not really, because technically it goes over Christmas, it goes over Thanksgiving, it goes over Halloween. I think it goes over no New Year's. That's four holidays right there. And that doesn't make sense to call it a Christmas movie because it doesn't span over 1 month. It spans over months of. So realistically, I could not say it's a Christmas movie. I just can't. Um, but like I said, ideally for something that should or one singular month would be coverage enough to say that that is a holiday movie. If it covers multiple holidays, then it is not a specific holiday movie. Sorry if people feel that they got robbed or said no, this movie is always a holiday movie, whatever, and I don't care. Then I don't care either. But I'm just saying it makes more sense if it's um and I say two holidays in one because, of course, you get like Christmas and New Year's. So that is both two holidays, one single month. So that makes sense if a movie covers both those days. Um, so that's two holidays to me. Um, but yeah, going on. Um, let's see here. Da, da, do. Emotional weather or weather out of nowhere. I think it's kind of ridiculous in some movies. I understand movies' budgets, but it is just kind of funny when, if it's not done on comedic purpose, all of a sudden somebody will just be walking down the street and all of a sudden it'll just heavily pour for some miraculous reason. And it is not to be like some kind of joke. It's done in a serious manner and it just makes no sense. If your movie is not about a weather related thing, it's not like The Day After Tomorrow or Sharknado or something like that where weather is a factor into your film, then it honestly makes no sense when um weather just all of a sudden it's just like just starts raining for some reason, or all of a sudden it just snows in in a place that never snows, or or it or it, like the world moves around for you, and then all of a sudden like a place that never you never see the sun all of a sudden sees the sun for 1 day, and it doesn't make sense at all. Weather out of nowhere. And also weather emotions. When all of a sudden somebody's sad and they're looking outside of a window and it's raining. Or when somebody is angry, all of a sudden there's there's a storm brewing. Oh, I'm angry, and pow 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 pow, like in Forrest Gump when Lieutenant Dan is screaming out to God, and there's just this huge like this worldwide like weather event. I think it was like a hurricane or a tornado or a hurricane. I think it was like a hurricane or something, and and Lieutenant Dan is screaming, and the lightning and whatever is just like going after him, and trying to like scare him or whatever. But he's like, "No, it's you and me." It's like, "Come down, come get me," and yeah, and like God is supposed to be like mad at him, so he's thundering and whatever. It's just weather out of weather emotions. When somebody's mad, all of a sudden the weather, unless you're Storm from the X-Men, then it makes sense. But any other occasion, it doesn't make sense. If all of a sudden you one day just like, yeah, I gotta get out of town, and a blizzard is going out of its way to keep you in that town, I guess that would be weather out of nowhere, but that would also be weather emotions to just like, no, you gotta stay in town, you gotta stay here. Um, in a lot of like holiday movies and stuff like that tend to do things like that, and it's just hilarious. Um, but on to another thing here. You know, when you have family in films, do you ever see films where a family member looks absolutely nothing like the other family member? When somebody says that they're brothers or they're brother and sister, and you look at both of them and they look nothing alike. Perfect example, Fantastic Four. The original movie Fantastic Four, not the updated version where the one family member is adopted. I'm talking about the original one where Chris Evans and Jessica Alba are supposed to be brother and sister. Do they look at all family resemblance anywhere? Does it look like they could be anywhere possible brother and sister? No, and I'm not talking about skin color. I'm not talking about hair color. I'm simply talking about, does this person look at all like they resemble one another? Not even close. Um, but ideally, I'm sure Chris Evans was supposed to actually originally have blonde hair, and for some reason that didn't happen. So, yeah, because evidently they went with a completely different direction. Um, but yeah, family, nope. When there's so many films where they've done family movies and you couldn't see at all how like a family could connect to one another. When you a lot of this might be like a little bit of racism, um, but the updated movie of yours, mine, and ours. They had all different kind of races and nationalities and everything like that in that entire mixed up family, and it was just kind of like, okay, did they adopt a lot of these kids, or like are they legit like all this moms? And it's like, oh yeah, it's all legit the same mom. I'm like, well, this doesn't make sense. It's just kind of like, man, did this woman really just like sleep around, or because it doesn't make sense. It just doesn't make sense. There's just like when you have every like I think they wanted to like have one of those where it's like the college pamphlet and they have every race in the pamphlet. That's kind of like how that movie was. Um, Not to say that people's races should not have been represented. I was just confused and baffled by like every single like race was covered in this movie, and it honestly just didn't make sense. Um, but yeah, family, nope. There's so many other examples of actual legitimate family members actually working together on a movie or a TV show or whatever, and they don't actually play their family members. And I was like, man, that is such a missed opportunity there. Like, this person is actually a family member of them, and they're not in this role. It doesn't make sense. But then you, of course, get the family members that don't resemble at all of one another, and there's so many examples of that. Um, where you get, uh, I think there's a daughter who is like a redhead, and the mother is like a blonde or a brunette. It's just like, well, how is it all of a sudden that this daughter is a redhead? I think that was in like the Jackie Chan movie where he like is this secret agent, and then he has to babysit this family, and like the mother and the kids don't match up with one another at all. It's like, okay, well, this makes no sense. Okay, they don't look but okay. Um, moving on because I'm trying to get to more of these as much as possible. Um, I hate you. Sex out of nowhere. There is a perfect example of this, which I will give you. There is this movie called Rollerball, the newer one, not the original one with Dean Cain. There is this, and it has LL Cool J in it. Um, this movie Rollerball had two people uh, that really honestly hated one another, and they treated each other like garbage. But then all of a sudden, you just see them in the locker room, in the shower, and they're having sex together. Um, okay. All of a sudden, these people love this. These two people love one another. Okay, this is just out of left field. Um, there were times in like police movies where all of a sudden you have where all of a sudden you have the whoops where all of a sudden you have uh, the two detectives, and you have the boss of those two detectives, and uh, the boss is like, come in here, and then they chew them out, and then they have one of the detectives stay, and the other detective leaves, and all of a sudden the boss and the detective are making out with one another, or having sex, or kissing, or whatever, and it's like, whoa, sex out of nowhere. It's like all of a sudden, like they gave this persona of, yeah, I'm gonna rip you a new one, I hate you, blah blah blah, and then all of a sudden they're just having sex or making out or whatever, and a lot of times they're just like, oh yeah, this is just nothing between us or whatever, but realistically, the one person does care about the other. It's like, oh, be safe out there and all that garbage. Um, but yeah, but it's just kind of funny that like these people like were never friends before or were never whatever, but then all of a sudden, well, bam. Um, and most of the time, the whole movie, they hated one another. There was this girl that hated this like nerdy guy, and she was like, the Beth Cooper movie, where the guy, out of nowhere just says, "I love you, Beth Cooper," and then all of a sudden this girl just finds, eventually towards the end of the movie, finds this guy to be more attractive, and really likes this guy and whatever, and sex out of nowhere basically. But yeah, but that's just another example of that. Um, if anything, let's talk about reinventing the sequel. When you have a movie that did well, all of a sudden, the sequel of this film, all of a sudden you have to go a completely different 180 direction. You have to go in a completely different direction. And everybody is just like, what the F? It's like you changed everything from the first film that everybody loved, and you completely changed everything. This makes no sense. Um, if something is not broke, do not fix it. If people enjoyed the first film, drastically changing the second film will not help. There's a perfect example of that when you had The Mechanic, Jason Statham movie. I don't know why I keep bringing up Jason Statham, but he seems to be the you do a lot of stuff wrong, buddy. I'm sorry. Jason Statham. Um, Anyways, he did this movie called The Mechanic. The deaths in this movie were very interesting. The overall movie was incredible. It was awesome. So much action, so much comedy, so much of everything. It was so good. The sequel. What happened? Basically the whole entire sequel was Jason Statham and Jessica Alba chilling out on this tropical island, having a good time, talking to one another, and I could not physically get through this entire film. This entire film was the most boringest sequel I've ever seen in my life, and I could not even finish the entire film because I kept falling asleep because this movie was utter garbage. And I dozed off. I didn't sleep through a lot of stuff, but I felt when I dozed off and woke up seconds later, I didn't miss anything. This movie was boring. So they basically slapped the word mechanic on it, knowing, hey, if you guys loved the first movie, you'll hate this one. But we're slapping the name on it, and people are just going to go to it. That's what I hate when people realize, oh, if you just slap this name on it, people will go and see it. Especially sequels, when they just want to make money. They don't care about how well the sequel is done. They just want to get it out there to rank in cash. And I understand that all comes down to writing, because it's hard to write a movie like once the big one did so well, then it's just like, well, how are we gonna go one up better than that? But there's been movies that have made 13, 14, 18, 20 some odd sequels, and they've done them really well. So I don't get why it is so hard to write a sequel when you have huge things like a certain thing that has gone forever. And that's the perfect thing that I could say there. But reinventing the sequels really shoot you in, really just, you might as well just shoot yourself in the foot. It's stupid. To drastically change a sequel to the point of it not making sense anymore. And that will completely, you'll just keep making money, I'm sure, but you'll be making money off of a name, not off of a good film. If anything, next, let's go to advertisement movie. There has been a lot of military movies that have just been out just to advertise the Coast Guard, the Navy, the Marines, the military, the this, the that, the this, the that. Realistically, I don't mind these kinds of films, but most of these films aren't exactly good. They're really just there just to advertise. Oh yeah, be a Marine. You'll be the coolest whatever guy, whatever. Be a police officer. You'll be the coolest guy ever. Oh, be this, you coolest, whatever. It doesn't really ring true to what these jobs really are. So it's kind of almost false advertisement in some ways, because realistically it's overdrawn. It's like, hey, Marines, you're in an alien invasion. What are you gonna do? A commercial for Marines. It's like, it's silly. It's cheesy. It's dumb. There's some of those that I actually did enjoy, like the Guardian, the Coast Guard movie with Kevin Costner. That was good, but there's so many other ones that was just a joke. Um, let's get to this one. Casting someone in a singing role who cannot sing or won't sing. This is kind of dumb. When you cast somebody who is supposed to do a certain task and cannot do it or won't do it. Perfect example, we have in the movie Rockstar, Mark Wahlberg is really there just to sell tickets. Because realistically, he won't or could not sing. Which was honestly kind of stupid when this movie didn't really need a certain look to someone, just needed someone who could sing, and he could not do that. That was dumb. When you have a movie where someone is supposed to sing and they cannot do that task, that just seems like a waste of a casting role. To that point, you're just casting somebody who looks good or somebody who can just, like I said, sell a movie. That's stupid. If you're doing a singing movie, someone should be singing that. There's so many roles like Walk the Line, where Phoenix, the guy who was the main character, actually sounded almost identical to the actual person doing the role. That was awesome. I don't know if Bohemian Rhapsody, if the guy who is playing Freddie Mercury is actually singing in that film, but he looks just like the character. But again, Rockstar, there was no specific look of a certain character. Realistically, you could have cast anybody as long as they could have had the tools to sing the songs. Queen of the Damned is another example of them casting a guy, Lestat. They casted, I'm trying to think of the guy's name, and I can't think of it. I think it's like Lambert or something. I don't know. If anything, you can IMDb it. He was cast as Lestat, and I think the whole time they had the lead singer of Korn sing all of the songs in the movie. Realistically, they could have actually had somebody who could actually sing actually do that role. I don't think Lestat really needed to be a specific looking person. He could have been a white person, could have been a black person, could have been a whatever looking person. The funny thing is, they had Aaliyah in this film, who is actually a person who can actually sing, and she does not sing in this movie. What a hugely missed opportunity that was, because realistically, that was her last film. Because after that, she passed away. But yeah, it's sad that a person who actually could sing is put in a role that does not actually sing. It makes no sense. But yeah, those are pretty good examples of if you're casting a role where somebody needs to do something and they can't or won't do it, why waste people's time? Why have somebody added in who actually can sing? Stupid. Stupid. Stupid, stupid. In a role where you're supposed to sing, you can't. Somebody could have said, hey, well, Russell Crowe shouldn't have sang in Les Miserables. He was actually pretty good. I laugh every time I see him, but it was a good choice. It was a good acting choice. I remember his thing. With talking about advertising movies, let's talk about obvious sponsorship. Obvious sponsorship. There's sometimes in movies where they go out of their way to show a sponsor. Ideally, perfect example would be, of course, the newest Ghostbusters, where Chris Hemsworth's character is going through ideas for putting up the ghost symbol, the no ghost symbol that they eventually come to. Well, in one of the rough drafts, of course, one of the logos is 7-Eleven, and they have to blatantly point that out. It's like, yeah, you just got the 7-Eleven logo. He's like, oh, really? And he was trying to come up with some stupid excuse for why that this logo would make sense to be one of their logos. It's like, well, yeah, but that's a identical logo that's already been used. Oh, okay, well, whatever. And they just kind of skirted around it. Obviously, 7-Eleven is one of the sponsors on this film. If anything, of course, we can't not help but bring up the new Power Rangers film. Of course, Krispy Kreme's was in the location of wherever the Zeo crystals were at the climax of this film. Um, of course, we have to bring up where whenever there is a favorite restaurant of somebody, it's like Man of Steel. There was so many times where they had to crash through certain buildings that honestly didn't make any sense. Like a IHOP, and then all of a sudden a Sears building, and then all of a sudden a this building, and it made no sense for why all of these things were um, that should have been done, because realistically it should have made more sense to crash through just buildings. It was like they're just going everywhere, but realistically they just so happen to crash into these buildings. It was stupid. Um, let's go on to another one. What was the point of this reboot? What was the point of rebooting something? A perfect example would be, what was the point of rebooting Red Dawn? Just to get another updated version out there? Was there going to be a sequel for this? No. Well, then what was the point of rebooting it? What was the point of rebooting RoboCop if there wasn't going to be a sequel after that? There's so many times where I think so many movies, they just wanted to make money, but there was no follow through of what was going to happen after X movie. There's some times where, there's some times where these certain movies that I probably just mentioned probably didn't make enough to justify doing a sequel, but ideally there seemed to have been big enough stars, big enough star power to get this movie to a sequel. But it just seems like there's so many reboots or remakes that completely went wasted, and now we're just now talking about just like, oh yeah, I want to see Ghostbusters. Oh, you want to see which one do you want to see? It's like, well, I don't want to see the Ghostbusters 2016 one. I want to see the Ghostbusters 1987 one, or 80, or 1991, or somewhere around there. I was born roughly when that movie was done, the original one. So now we're just calling these movies, the Red Dawn, the more current one, and the Red Dawn, the original. And there's now it's just a headache to go and try and buy an old movie. And that's what it really just comes down to, because the original one was so much better than the newer one, but you accidentally buy the newer one and you're like, oh, this garbage, and you chuck it because you hated that film. But yeah, what was the point of all these reboots when there was realistically just like, yeah, I just really wanted to do this movie, and evidently you just wanted to do the movie that you wanted to do, and you didn't care if after that was done that it went anywhere. It's just stupid. It's just a waste of money and a waste of time. There is so many times in so many movies, we're gonna go to the next one. Watch someone die, or last second help. I don't understand why some people watch someone die. Do they enjoy it in the movie? They cry and they scream and they but they're continuously watching this person either get chewed alive by a shark or get into some device or be carried away by some monster or creature of some kind, and they just watch. Do they enjoy this? Because I don't understand why they're not doing anything to help this person. It makes no sense. I am baffled and confused by this person who, like, also the person that jumps in the last second, grabs the guy away from the axe murderer, and, hey, come on, guy, let's go, let's go. It's just like, you waited for this guy to get grabbed, and right before he fades away into the dark, you grab his hand. It's like, come on, guy, let's go. Why couldn't you have done that a second after you saw him, like, go, he's behind you? And he's like, what? What are you talking about, bro? And then all of a sudden, guy comes from the side, grab, oh, God, oh. And then you just, like, grab the guy. Come, let's go. Let's run away from this monstrous person. Instead of just like, you're just, like, stunned there, enjoying whatever the heck is going on. It makes no sense. It makes no sense that you just enjoy somebody getting taken, murdered, whatever, because that's evidently what you get your jollies off, because I can't make a sense of anything other than that. Why you won't, like, quickly jump in and try to save this person, or just, like, look away, or just like, well, he's dead, and then just go and drive off or whatever, or run the other way and just like, well, F that guy, I'm out of here, goodbye. That guy's dead, I'm getting out of here. That's what you should be doing. You should not be enjoying the death of another person. That is a funny one, but I needed to put that in there. Let's go to this one. Years later, I get that joke now. Adult humor in kids' movies. This makes no sense. Ideally, you must trust that this person is going to watch this movie years after it is made and then finally understand whatever this joke is. I think it's stupid. Yeah, you can say it's like, well, we're trying to appeal to a multi-audience. Yeah, we're going to give the laughs for the kids, but then also give something for the adults that have to forcibly watch this. I understand that, but realistically nowadays, how many times do actual adults watch movies with their kids? And then sometimes they'll realize, oh my god, that this is the wrong movie to have their kids watch. It looks like a kid's movie, but all of a sudden it has toilet humor and cussing and this and that, and oh my god, this is the wrong movie to show to my kids. It looked like an animated film, but I was wrong. Oh, boo. Like, ideally, I like DC animated films because realistically it appeases to me. Excuse me. Maybe not to a young a kid or whatever, because sometimes they make boob jokes, or sometimes they make colorful jokes, like, "Hey Flash, you got a little brown on your nose," while talking about him kissing Batman's butt, basically. But yeah, a lot of people, maybe some kids won't get that kind of humor or go over their head. So it'll take kids years after buying this thing and watching it. Years later, oh, I get that joke now. I understand it because I was a young kid who didn't understand what this joke meant. That is kind of stupid, because realistically, there's a lot of parents that won't sit down and watch a movie with their kid. Or sometimes you're just giving parents a job to now have to explain whatever this joke was. And yeah, you're just making the parents do extra work, which they don't want to do. Let's bring up When did you learn this trait, Swiss Army knife character? When a person all of a sudden has this whammadine trait that they didn't talk about before, it's like, man, thank God for this character. And it's just like, yeah, but when did you learn this? It's like, oh yeah, I watch a lot of YouTube videos, or there's just seems to be some kind of oh, I read a lot of books and that's how I know of this. It's just kind of like an excuse under the rug that you're pulling out, and oh, here's my excuse of stupid things. Oh yeah, I know how to sew a wound. I've watched YouTube videos of people sewing people up. Doesn't make sense. All of a sudden you're a doctor because you've seen YouTube videos or you've read books. Is Help me figure that out, please. It doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense at all. But yeah, but that just seems kind of stupid and silly. But yeah. How many more things? I'm just looking to see if I've covered most of the stuff that I've wanted to cover or needed to cover. Yeah, almost pretty much. We have just a few things left, and then we can wrap this up. I honestly kind of mentioned this a little bit, but travel sequels logically do not make sense. It seems like after the first movie, these characters made money off of the first film, and so all of a sudden now they have money to travel or do these lavish things that they weren't able to all of a sudden do in the first film. It makes no sense. I understand it's just like, well, yeah, but we wanted to change a pace. We wanted to do a travel thing, and this is what we did. It doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense to the film. Like, most of these people don't have these kind of lavish lifestyles, and now all of a sudden they do. It doesn't make sense at all. I don't care if it's like, well, yeah, but it's years after the first film or whatever. It just doesn't make sense. All of a sudden, these people have all this money in the world to just travel now. At the end of Final Destination, or at the end of the very first Final Destination movie, it seems like they fly to France at the beginning of the movie. Now they're flying somewhere else at the end of the movie. It makes no sense. They have all this money to travel. I guess some of these people are very rich, but it doesn't make sense to me. It doesn't make sense. But yeah, let's go into... Speaking of travel, settings in a movie. Good God, how many different settings do you have to have in one film? All of a sudden, this person is like backpacking through the entire world. It does not make sense. Logically, it doesn't make sense when all of a sudden this person's Budapest, France, London, France, Norway, Egypt. Like, ideally, in the movie Jumper, it makes sense, but anywhere else, it does not make sense. In the movie Jumper, you had this like Nightcrawler guy who can teleport. That's another thing. In like monster movies, all of a sudden the slow killer is way behind the person, and all of a sudden, bam, he's right in front of the person. Do they have a teleporter that I'm not aware of? And that's kind of like how these travel movies are like. That aren't actually travel movies. They're just movies where all of a sudden these people are in 80 different locations in a span of a week. It doesn't make sense. But yeah, other than that, I think the last one, I think we've covered everything but two. Gimmick monsters that don't actually use their gimmick. If there's a pirate monster, he should be using like a sword to kill somebody, or a parrot to pluck out somebody's eyes, or like if he's a ghost, he should be moving objects willy-nilly and killing somebody. A ghost that